G'day everyone, and Attack76 here with a quick morning stream. Just thought I'd fill in a bit of time while I'm waiting for my day to start and while the house was still quiet. I hope we're all well. So I thought, seeing as something I don't seem to be able to get people to look at, because I don't know, I actually think that this is very much like the climate debate, in that there are a lot of people on both sides of the debate who think the science is settled, and the science is far from settled about the virus or about any treatments and such like. Anyone who's jumping on board hydroxychloroquine as a cure is a moron. It may have uses in early parts of the illness, but so far that is really all you can take from the information that's out there. It doesn't seem to help in the later part of the illness, but we'll cover that another time. So something I've been trying to get people to understand, but they don't seem to have the time to actually research and find out what people are actually talking about. They prefer to just pretend they know all the answers. Is what are the ongoing sequelae that people have from this illness? Now, that can be something that is temporary, lasts a few weeks or a couple of months, or that can be something that is permanent. The other thing people seem to have a misconception about is what is a mild case of COVID. A mild case of COVID is not just a little cough. A mild case of COVID is not just a bit of a chesty thing and then it goes away and you're fine. Okay? And it also, they don't know if your antibodies are going to last any particular length of time, which also goes into the vaccine argument, because it means that if your antibodies aren't going to last, then the vaccine also probably won't last. But anyway, we'll get to that another time. And as I keep telling people, there are much more qualified people out there than me to be trying to discuss these things. But I thought, I saw this little thing in The Guardian, and it summarises not too badly the things that I've seen discussed elsewhere, both in journals as well as on different forums and whatnot. So I thought I'd bring this to you, as well as a small snatch from a very early press conference done by the WHO, which was actually shared around all the conspiracy channels. But I don't know, you seem to have all forgotten about these things. Now, you only quote the WHO and the CDC and things when it suits your purposes. Frankly, I prefer not to quote them at all, but if you're going to quote them, I'll quote them back at you. Think a mild case of COVID-19 doesn't sound so bad? Think again. And you're going to see more and more of this coming out in the media. They haven't spoken about how people are recovering. You haven't been told anything about the recovered. You've seen one or two on the news where they're like, oh yeah, I was pretty bad for a week or so, but now I'm yeehaw. Other than that, you've seen people who've been desperately ill and may or may not have survived. Otherwise healthy people who thought they had recovered from coronavirus are reporting persistent and strange symptoms, including strokes. Now, this was written on the 6th of July, but if you take the time to go and have a look, you will find information like this coming out in January and February and March and April and May and June. You just decided to ignore it. Conventional wisdom suggests that when a sickness is mild, it's not too much to worry about. But if you're taking comfort in World Health Organization reports that over 80% of global COVID-19 cases are mild or asymptomatic, think again. As virologists race to understand the biomechanics of SARS-CoV-2, one thing is becoming increasingly clear. Even mild cases can be more complicated, dangerous, and harder to shake than many first thought. Another thing you may recall doing the rounds on all the conspiracy channels was about the potential for this to have been bioengineered. And there's actually a few ways they can do that. They can physically manipulate the virus itself, or they can just keep breeding batches of virus over and over and over until it naturally gives them these mutations. Okay? So this may or may not have been a deliberate release, an accidental release. It may even turn out to be an actual natural pathogen. I personally think one or two is probably more likely, but that's my personal opinion. One thing is becoming increasingly clear: even mild cases can be more complicated, dangerous, and harder to shake than many first thought. Throughout the pandemic, a notion had persevered that people who have mild cases of COVID-19 and do not require an ICU stay or the use of a ventilator are spared from serious health repercussions. Just last week, Mike Pence, the US Vice President, claimed it's a good thing that nearly half of new COVID cases surging in 16 states are young Americans who are at less risk of becoming severely ill than their older counterparts. This kind of rhetoric would lead you to believe that the ordeal of mildly infected patients ends within 2 weeks of becoming ill, at which point they recover and everything goes back to normal. Now, before I read any more of this, I might just play this little bit from Who, which I think I have set up, hopefully.
I wanted to ask if you could elaborate a little bit on what the term mild to moderate means, because I've heard that it includes pneumonia, but I think that when people hear that 80% of people get mild to moderate disease, it seems like no big deal.
That is a very good point. So we do say that 80% of people, well, based on our information from China, let's stick with our facts here. 80% of the cases reported from China have had a mild or moderate infection, mild or moderate disease. The moderate part of that definition does include pneumonia.
I wanted to ask if you could elaborate a little bit on what the term mild to moderate means, because I've heard that it includes pneumonia, but I think that when people hear that 80% of people get mild to moderate disease, it seems like no big deal.
That is a very good point. So we do say that 80% of people, well, based on our information from China, let's stick with our facts here. 80% of the cases reported from China have had a mild or moderate infection, mild or moderate disease. The moderate part of that definition does include pneumonia.
Now, they actually knew way back then that it was looking like there were going to be longer term impacts than just your average pneumonia type infection. Okay, so we'll continue on. Throughout the pandemic, a notion has persevered that people who have mild cases of COVID-19 do not require an ICU stay or the use of ventilators and are spared serious health repercussions. Well, you've just heard that it could be mild pneumonia, which is potentially going to give you ongoing lung issues, isn't it? At the very, very least. While that may be the case for some people who get COVID-19, emerging medical research as well as anecdotal evidence from many recovered support groups suggests that many survivors of mild COVID are not so lucky. They experience lasting side effects and doctors are still trying to understand the ramifications. This is because, as I said, this virus has all these little functions that they didn't expect it to have, okay, including the fact that it can infect the central nervous system. And laugh all you want when people like Bieber Anti-Bullying say it gets in your balls. He's not joking. It can go and hide there. They experience lasting side effects and doctors are still trying to understand the ramifications. Some of these side effects can be fatal. According to Dr. Christopher Kellner, a professor of neurosurgery at Mount Sinai Hospital in New York, mild cases of COVID in which the patient was not hospitalized for the virus have been linked to blood clotting and severe strokes in people as young as 30. And we saw some of that happening here in Australia, and they were actually younger than 30. I don't know if it mentions this one, but there's been at least one case mentioned where a young woman, I believe it was, somewhat lost the ability to breathe without consciously thinking of it. These are pretty scary impacts. A bit like they're finding some of the weird outlier symptoms, like people with non-stop hiccups. I mean, you wouldn't normally expect that, but they've had a couple of people who've come in different places. I think one was in the US and one was in Europe somewhere, or it might have been in China. And their only presenting symptoms was persistent hiccups. And then they've taken x-rays, what have you, of their chest, and they've found the ground glass opacity in there, which means slowly but surely their blood oxygen would have ended up stuffed up if they hadn't noticed what was going on in there. And they could have been one of these people that collapse in the street. In May, Kellner told Healthline that Mount Sinai had implemented a plan to give anticoagulant drugs to people with COVID-19 to prevent the strokes they were seeing in younger patients with no or mild symptoms. Doctors now know that COVID-19 not only affects the lungs and blood, but kidneys, liver and brain, the last potentially resulting in chronic fatigue and depression, among other symptoms. Those are like the common ones, the chronic fatigue and the depression. Although the virus is not yet old enough for long-term effects on those organs to be well understood, they may manifest regardless of whether a patient ever required hospitalisation, hindering their recovery process. Another troubling phenomenon now coming into focus is that of long-haul COVID-19 sufferers, people whose experience of the illness has lasted for months. There's a Dutch report published earlier this month. There's actually quite a bit of information out there on long haulers if you go and have a look. Dutch report, they surveyed 1,622 patients who had reported enduring symptoms. The patients had an average age of 53. Reported intense fatigue, 88%, persistent shortness of breath, 75%, chest pressure, 45%, 91% of the patients weren't hospitalised, suggesting they suffered these side effects despite their cases qualifying as mild. While 85% of surveyed patients considered themselves generally healthy before having COVID-19, only 6% still did so 1 month or more after getting the virus. So even if you don't end up with something long-lasting, this is going to knock you out for a while, and I hope you're prepared for that. After being diagnosed with COVID-19, 26-year-old Fiona Lowenstein experienced a long, difficult and non-linear recovery firsthand. The non-linear recovery is something else they've been finding right back in January and February, where people start to feel better, their fever drops and whatnot, and then it comes back again. And then it goes away and it comes back, and it goes away and it comes back. She became sick on 17th of March, was briefly hospitalised for fever, cough and shortness of breath. They advised she return to hospital if those symptoms worsened, but something else happened instead. I experienced this whole slew of new symptoms: sinus pain, sore throat, really severe gastrointestinal issues. Diarrhea is a known side effect for it's reasonably common, but not one of the most common. I was having diarrhea every time I ate. I lost a lot of weight, which made me weak, a lot of fatigue, headaches, loss of sense of smell. By the time she felt mostly better, it was mid-May. So middle of March or so, she's 2 months, although some of her symptoms still routinely re-emerge, she says. It's almost like a blow to your ego to be in your 20s and healthy and active and get hit with this thing and think you're going to get better and you're going to be okay, and then have it really not pan out that way. Unable to find information about what she was experiencing and wondering if more people were going through a similarly prolonged recovery, she created a support group forum, and there's some 6,000 members in there now. Most of them were not hospitalised for their illness, but have been feeling sick for months after their initial flu-like respiratory symptoms subsided, according to a survey within the group. So obviously this is more anecdotal than scientific. The vast majority of whom are under 50 have experienced symptoms such as facial paralysis, seizures, hearing and vision loss, headaches, memory loss, diarrhea, serious weight loss, and more. Okay, so to me and most people, the definition of mild, passed down from the WHO and other authorities, meant any case that didn't require hospitalisation at all, that anyone who wasn't hospitalised was going to have some small cold and could take care of it at home. And that's what everyone thought, because because people listen to the WHO. All those people who don't trust government and don't trust these institutions don't take the time to compare information from one institution to another. At this stage, where medical professionals and the public alike are learning about COVID-19 as the pandemic unfolds, it's important to keep in mind how little we truly know about this vastly complicated disease, and to listen to the experiences of survivors, especially those whose recoveries have been neither quick nor straightforward. It may be reassuring to describe the majority of COVID-19 cases as mild, but perhaps that term isn't as accurate as we hoped. Now, I realise that's The Guardian, but as I said, and I don't know, I'll see how I go. Maybe I'll go and find some stuff to shove in the description for you, but frankly, I don't see why I should bother when I give people names and details, and no one can be bothered going and doing a simple check for themselves. They want to continue pretending that facts aren't facts, and it's starting to get really, I don't know. I honestly feel like a lot of people I know are now in the same class as a climate cultist, and they just refuse to see science as a developing exploratory process. I just wanted to bring you that article, but what I did do, because it's really hard to find any information that doesn't come from official sources unless you take the time to look. And something I notice with all these people is they're happy to share all these little clickbaity clips and things of people who are supposedly freedom fighting and, going bar at people and all the rest of it. It is ironic that these same people condemn BLM and climate cultists for very similar behaviour, but, that's another thing. I've gone through YouTube and had to go quite deep into the search results to get a whole heap of videos of people who've actually had mild COVID. Now, these aren't necessarily long haulers. This is obviously a playlist I have called I Have the Wooflu, which is where I've been slowly collecting some of these bits up, and we might just watch a few of these. Feel free to go there yourself. The first one you'll see there, the MedCram one, is all about the impacts after coronavirus and whatnot, and is done by a doctor who actually has a proper training institute. So we might just watch a few of these, and then I will pack it up for the day.
What's up, y'all? It is I, Miro, and this should be on my YouTube channel. Once upon a time, no, I'm just kidding. There will be not once upon a time. Now, CJ's parents got the whole COVID situation, and her mom was in the hospital because she's got asthma as well. So she went to the hospital, and she got put on oxygen. And but all of you guys were so nice to us, and you sent your prayers and thoughts, and thankfully through that, today she got released from the hospital. She's good to go home and rest there. She's still now out of the woods, but the doctor thinks that if she's home, she'll recover quicker than that. Also, her dad's got COVID as well. Oh, hey, baby. Her dad's got COVID as well. He's at home, though. He's just weak and, oh, well, goodbye. He's at home and he doesn't feel good. He's weak and he lost a lot of weight, and he asked me how to get his weight back. And I sent him some protein shakes and told him what to eat. So Bob is going to be Mr. Nashville 2021. And get ready. He said he's really dedicated to get his weight back. So I thought, I had a little I had the loss of taste and smell. And I decided to go in and do a check, of course, because I'm a responsible citizen. And I went and got a check. And I got my result right here. I printed it out from my phone. Because I was really confused from the beginning. I thought it was, reading the test, it could be really confusing. And as I sat down and opened and read, and it says, first it said detected, then it says not detected, 01. That's like my Twitch. I'm about to start twitching. Miro Twitch, by the way. Follow me. Yeah, so I was reading, it says detected, and then it says next to it says not detected, 01. So I thought yesterday, I thought when I opened this, I thought it was, clear. I thought I did not have the COVID, which was weird. And also it says if you have it, somebody's going to call you. So I didn't get no calls. But today I had a call from like New York area or whatever. So I said, well, I usually don't answer calls that. So that's why it's kind of weird when like an unknown number calls you and you got to pick up, but you don't know that they're calling you about your test. So that's kind of a tricky situation. But I did answer hello, and finally they told me that my test was detected, aka positive. So all the past 2 minutes and 15 seconds were not wasted, but was so I can tell you that I have COVID. I tested positive, and yeah. But the weirdest thing is I feel great though. Like I understand that people get hit differently, and I did lose my sense of smell and taste. And now looking back at it, maybe I was a little tired for a couple of afternoons. But I thought just working out and stuff like that gets you tired. But I should have known. Well, not that I should have known. I suspected something, and I went and got tested, and it turns out that I'm positive. So now I have to sitting home, I'll be a lot more on my Twitch and probably making some more YouTube videos. Lucky for me, I have gym at home, so you know my abs are gonna keep popping out, and we're gonna keep eating the right food, except today, because today's Sunday, and Sunday calories don't count, or at least not until 3,000.
Oh, have I got a story for you? Well, I obviously disappeared for a month, and it's been a hell month, and I want to give you just a quick update. This won't be a polished video, just me in my hotel room, out of breath, but lucky to be alive. So let me tell you the story of what happened over this last month. I flew to Serbia, as some of you know who follow me on Instagram, about a month ago now, a little bit more. And when I was here, I was just living a normal life in Serbia. Serbia wasn't in lockdown. I thought it was a perfect place to come make some videos for you guys. However, I caught coronavirus, COVID-19. My own fault, I think, really. You know, wasn't being as safe as I should have been. So I've got no one to blame apart from myself. And the biggest mistake was that I didn't go to a doctor immediately. I sat in an apartment with it for 10 days. I don't know why. I think a number of reasons. One's I'm a Brit, and us Brits, like, we hate going to the doctors. Two, a little bit of macho-ness maybe. And three, I don't know, just I thought, oh, it'll be all right. I'm young, or young enough. You know, I'm not in the age group that dies from coronavirus. So I waited in this apartment for 10 days as I steadily got worse and worse and worse. It was horrendous. By the end of it, I couldn't even walk to the bathroom. I couldn't breathe. And that's when a friend said, okay, listen, I'm going to take you to the hospital. I remember walking to the taxi on that day, and honestly, it was like I was an old man. I had to hold on to him. Now, what I didn't know at the time, because I didn't know anything about medical things at the time, but what I know now was there was no oxygen in my blood. Most people have an oxygen level of about 98, 99 in their blood. What I subsequently found out was mine was down in the low 70s. I was dying basically at home and not realising it. My organs were shutting down. I couldn't think straight, which was another reason why I didn't go to the hospital. My brain just wasn't thinking like a normal human would due to lack of oxygen. Anyway, I went to the hospital, a private clinic here in Serbia, and they said, shit, you need to get to hospital immediately. They called an ambulance, and they took me to a COVID hospital, a government hospital here, and they put me on a ward, and they gave me a few meds and stuff, but after a few days I wasn't getting better. In fact, I was getting worse. I couldn't breathe. It was getting worse. And oh, my arm's so tired. So what happened then? Well, friends started coming through for me, above and beyond the call of duty really, and they started making phone calls, and friends in Russia made phone calls to the Russian embassy and said, listen, we got someone here who's done a few things for Russia in his time, promoted the country, can we do something for him? And fortunately, someone at the Russian embassy took pity and made some phone calls to the director of the hospital and said, we've got this guy here, can we get him, put him in intensive care? And yeah, so I got moved up to intensive care, and I spent a week basically in intensive care in this hospital here in the suburbs of New Belgrade, trying to recover basically. I saw some terrible things in that intensive care unit. On the 1st of July, I woke up about 5 o'clock in the morning to see the person in the bed next to me being resuscitated manually by the nurses and doctors. There were nurses and doctors all around, and they were trying to resuscitate that person. It was an older person, but I just remember lying there, just watching this, just thinking, what the fuck is going on? I'd never seen a dead person before, definitely never seen anyone die before, but that person died. And that scared me a lot, because I was like, well, if that person can die, and they weren't that old, then who knows about me? A few hours later, the person in the bed in front of me, I was just watching their machine, their monitors, nothing else to do in an IC unit, and it just went flat. The nurse came over, checked him, called a doctor, checked the pulse, threw the blanket over the face. He was dead. He was a lot older. But yeah, so that was pretty nuts, basically, just to see two people die in front of you like that. Really brings it home to you, you know, just what this coronavirus is about. Anyway, the ICU unit staff, ICU units, how do you say it? ICU unit, whatever, were amazing. The Serbian doctors and nurses, I have to keep switching on because I've just got no strength. The doctors were amazing. They looked after me. There was a nurse in there all the time, just checking me, giving me all these medicines, antibiotics that, well, subsequently have kind of like fucked me up in some ways, but got me over the coronavirus. I had double pneumonia. I mean, it spread to every part of my lungs. So yeah, it was really at one stage, it was kind of touch and go, without being overly dramatic. Anyway, eventually the medicine started to work. I started to recover a little bit, and I was released from the IC unit back onto a ward, and I spent another 4 or 5 days there. Yeah, it's been an absolute nightmare. My body's wasted away just from lying in bed all that time.
You can hear he's getting breathless just from talking. This guy actually, well worth going and checking out some of his videos, because he actually didn't believe in the whole COVID thing being an issue, as he said. Thought he was pretty bomb-proof. And then it happened.
I just saw the most terrible things there. you know, just people who are never going to make it, and people who are younger than me. You know, this is the thing about coronavirus, is that we think that statistically, if you're under a certain age, there's no chance anything's going to happen to you. It's such a small percentage, and that's probably true. Maybe it is only a 1% chance that some complications will happen to you. But Jesus, I mean, if you're in that 1%, that doesn't make much difference, you know. I saw younger people than me in there. I don't know, of course, their medical history, what things happened to them, but, you know, what other reasons there were, maybe underlying reasons. But, I mean, they're in a terrible state. I saw people get things shoved into their rib cage and, like, drain out this liquid without anaesthetic just because they had to do it immediately to save their lives. It was like a horror film. I've never seen anything like it. I think I've probably, like, got PTSD from this experience. Anyway, yeah, so you find out in times like this who your friends are. He arranged it for me. Friends of mine who made phone calls and just made sure that I got the best care that I could in this private hospital, in this government hospital, sorry. This really has knocked the stuffing out of me. And I just wanted to say, please be careful, guys, because I was a dick, really, you know. I took chances. I should have just stayed home. An age group, you're under, you know, you're not, you know, and start getting the process started. Don't wait like me for 10 days. What a knob. So, yeah. Oh, man. So what have I learned from this experience? Well, I've learned, wow, life. You know, the most fundamental thing, when I was in that ward on the unit and I saw those 2 people die, it's like you realise that there was nothing spiritual in it at all. You kind of expect, like, this moment of death, some kind of, I don't know, this light to shine down and angels to raise you up kind of thing. And the reality is that you're on a bed, someone throws a sheet over you, switches off your machine, and your life's over, and that's it, and people die on their own. You know?
I am a COVID long hauler. For many of you, you don't know what that is. What a COVID long hauler is someone who tested positive for COVID and either still test positive or test negative after testing positive and still have symptoms for long periods of time. For me, I am at 106 days since my first ER visit and 111 days since my first symptom onset. I think it's really important to understand, although no matter what I say or any doctors or politicians or anybody tells you, if you don't experience COVID long hauling yourself, you'll never get it. I mean, I can try, but it's hard. The mockery and the disbelief of the virus is, I think, the strongest thing that people just can't let go of. For right now, I take it, I would say, a minute at a time. People say a day at a time, but you can't do that. There's no day at a time, because you can wake up feeling okay, and then within an hour feel like you're going to die. And that, I say that very seriously. Right now I'm having a good hour. It doesn't mean that I feel good. It just means that it's much better than other times when all my symptoms are acting up at once, or one is very, very strong. So I'll tell you some of my symptoms that I deal with on a daily basis. Right now, my hair is falling out. I already have bald spots. If I just touch it, brush it, wash it, it comes out. And I mean in big chunks, not the normal you lose your hair in the shower girls or your hair is treated. I mean losing your hair. It'll be in the brush, it'll be in my hands, it'll be
now this is one of those things that they're finding. This is actually not really common, but it's also not uncommon. There is a medical term for it, but it escapes me. I'm terrible with names of things. But there is actually a technical term for this. It's something that happens when you get quite sick sometimes. It has nothing to do with radiation poisoning, okay, Thanos fans?
in the shower. It'll be, if I don't have it tied up, I can just be sitting there and I will see it next to me in chunks. That's one thing. My head hurts so bad that it feels like your brain is trying to grow within your skull and break out. And that's the best way I can explain it. And it's not like, oh, it's a migraine. No, it's definitely not that. It is something new. I am 31 years old, and I have never felt any of the things that I have felt for these last over 100 days. I currently still have lung pain. I can't lay on my back because my lungs not only burn, like they actually feel like someone is inside with a lighter burning them from the inside, but I also feel the pressure when I lay down on my back, and it's hard to breathe, harder to breathe because it's still hard to breathe. My heart hurts. If I lay on my left side, where closer to the heart, then it feels like a gurgling, kind of like when you have a straw and you blow into your drink and it goes. That's what it feels like. My BPM is either very, very low or very, very high, and it can shoot up and down whenever for no reason. I also struggle with this weird things happening with my smell. So when I first was sick and I told my primary doctor that I lost my smell and taste, the CDC had not reported that as a symptom yet, just like they haven't reported many of the proven symptoms that thousands and thousands of people have. So my doctor said that I should see a psychiatrist because I was having psychosomatic symptoms. 2 weeks later, the CDC released loss of taste and smell as a symptom. They only just released, I think a couple days ago, nausea and diarrhea. We're here, 4 or 5 months later, and they're barely accepting that. There are already studies proving that COVID long haulers are experiencing brain damage, and I mean extreme forms of brain damage, and still the CDC has not accepted that. I know many people in my survivors group of over 60,000 people who are complaining of these things every day. For me, it's stuttering. At any moment, I can start to stutter. I can lose my train of thought, and not like your normal train. I mean, the train has left the station and it doesn't come back. I shake uncontrollably sometimes. It's not like the chills, it's just like and not like a seizure, but just I don't have control of the movement of my body, tingling and jolting everywhere. What started as loss of taste and smell is now smelling things that aren't there. I smell weird things all the time, and I ask my boyfriend if he smells them, and I'm sorry, my husband now, because we married online through the county. But he says no. And there are odd things that I shouldn't be smelling in the house anyway. Doctors haven't been able to tell me what that is. And I changed my doctor 6 times till I finally found someone who at least listens to my issues. It's still hard to see a specialist. I don't have an appointment for a specialist until July. And even then, you have to understand that as a COVID long hauler, you can be someone who had this before social distancing, like me. And the average amount of time that the antibodies, which haven't been proven to work, last is up to 2 months. It's been more than 2 months, and I am negative. So the issue is, here I am trying to take care of the lingering issues, and I need to go to Kaiser Hospital in July to check my heart, to check my brain, to check the many other things that are ailing me. And I have to consider whether it's worth catching COVID a second time, since I'm not even better from the first time. So it's a bit of a catch-22. You're damned if you do and you're damned if you don't, because either I can stay home and pray and wish it away, or I can go to the doctor and take a chance that they might find something horrible like they have with many, or that they find nothing at the moment, and I have to go home like many have and risk blood clot, heart attack, lung, organ, kidney, whatever failure. And that is the truth of it. And there are many nights where, as real as I can tell you, I will cry, and I'm not the only one. You have thousands of people doing this. I will cry because the pain is so bad that not only do I not want to bear it, but I'm convinced that if I sleep, I won't wake up. And even then, if I wanted to sleep, I can't, because the insomnia is so bad that the strongest sleeping pills.
It's another thing that seems to be quite common is the this fear of going to sleep and not waking up, which I'm sure for some is just something that might happen after a serious illness, but this does seem to be common, this paranoia about going to sleep and not waking up.
Don't work on me. They don't put me to sleep. I'm allowed to take a maximum amount of the sleeping aids, and they don't work. I just get a calming feeling along with my multitude of symptoms. I think along with the drenching sweats and the fevers that just won't stop, because my husband has to cover me in ice sometimes, because even with medication, the fever doesn't stop climbing, and he tries to keep me out of a hospital visit. I think the worst is the fact that people don't understand, and instead of educating themselves, or instead of, even if they don't want to educate themselves, staying quiet, a lot of them are like, this isn't true, you're crazy, this is all a hoax, this is that. And I feel for them, because I really truly think that no one deserves this. And for all those people who've said all these things, and then if it ever works its way into your yard, into your home, into your family, or into yourself, you'll remember all that. Because I've met many people actually through the survivors groups, many survivor groups online, with actual doctors and nurses who worked on the front lines and turned people away, or even mocked people. They actually have admitted to many people on these online sites and said that they regret how they acted. They regret everything. They understand now. There are doctors and nurses who.
Hey guys, how are ya? Just want to make a video update about what's happening today. So today is day 17 and literally my lungs hurt today probably more than they have in the last week. Still taking my medications, in other words vitamins. Definitely energy is like lower as a result. So the waves of this virus are something totally different than anything I've ever experienced in my life. You'll literally feel like you're improving, things are getting better, and then it hits you again and again and again and again. So one thing that you really have to mentally prepare for is the ongoing effects of this virus. In other words, it keeps coming back. It's a very weird sensation. So throughout the time that you're sick, you really can't mess around, you can't relax, you can't smoke, you can't drink. You need to really be focused on your health, sleep well, do all the right things, and keep your body in mind too. So it's kind of my suggestion. It's definitely something that is an ongoing fight. So at 17 days, I'm not over the virus yet, and I feel like I still have some ways to go. Good luck, guys. Stay strong. We're gonna get through this thing.
I will link the playlist at the bottom of the video when I re-upload it. And there's some really interesting stories in there from people. Some have had a really mild time of it and they've barely suffered any ongoing consequences. Others have. I didn't pick and choose. I literally just, if someone had had an experience with COVID, I've been adding it to that playlist. So one last short one and then we'll pack it up for today.
For people who still aren't taking any of this seriously, this is how I'm breathing currently. I'm still on the medication. Still getting headaches. Still having fevers. Still, I'm better than what I was, so I'm on the mend. And the staff at the hospital did everything they could to help. But for everyone who isn't doing any of the safety measures that have been advised or taking the necessary precautions to protect their friends, their family, their colleagues.
That one cut off short. That was as long as that one was, I'm afraid. But you can go and look at that channel. There are other bits and pieces on there. I just thought trying to see her talk and trying through what she's got going on in her chest and things was really interesting. Most people would have seen this one. I am not going to play that. In fact, I'm going to pack us up now. You can do what you want, you can think what you want, but you need to have proper reasoning. And if your reasoning is, I don't like it, wah, my fifis, then I'm sorry, you're in the wrong. And if you're running borders and things, well, you're responsible for if you've been encouraging, cheering that on, you're responsible for Queensland about to be re-shut down. You're responsible for New South Wales about to be shut down, just as much if you were the one that had snuck over the border. Okay, so just go and actually look into things yourself. Go and look at the scientific papers yourself. Don't listen to the WHO, don't listen to politicians, don't listen to mainstream media. I'm sorry, but the media said 4 months ago is not an excuse to be a dickhead today. The media and government and whatnot lying and politicking this issue to death is not an excuse for you to pretend that you can't go and find the facts for yourself. You complain about government telling you what to do and then you rely on government to give you the facts and to protect you. I'm sorry, not good enough. It's really not good enough. It's all the people out there denying viruses. I'm sorry, but are you teaching your children that there is no such thing as a viral STI is not a gotcha question. It's a serious question, because I'd be telling my kids, look, just watch those ones when you're out partying, okay? Because we all know what teenagers are like, and I'd prefer mine to at least be aware of what they're coming into contact with or potentially coming into contact with. you're behaving just like climate cultists. You condemn BLM and whatnot for their protests, but you're doing the exact same thing. There is no difference. There is zero difference between them gathering in 40,000 and you going out without your mask on and breathing all over everyone. And if you don't understand how a mask works and you can't comprehend how they actually help things from spreading, if you can't prove this isn't something, you don't have the right to decide that old people were going to die anyway. You know, like every old person that dies while you're going, I'm going to run around not wearing a mask, you have your little tiny bit of responsibility for that. It's just not right. It's just seriously not right. There's been evidence of all of this from the start, and ignorance is no excuse. Yeah. So I'm sorry to the young woman, well, she's not that young, who said that I'm no longer welcome in the movement. I was never part of your movement. I was never part of your gang, and I certainly wouldn't want to be. Politically aligned on some issues, yes. Beyond that, nah. Sorry, you're not someone I want to hang out and have coffee with, okay? Most of you aren't. All right, so having said all that, have a nice day, and thanks for listening.
you